Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the three topics gaming here to share if you know one of my worst to best tier list style ranking videos to share with you guys today. Now, as I was looking back at prior rankings that I have done before, trying to come up with new ideas in order to upload and share with you guys, I thought that, despite the fact that I already have done an individual ranking of gaming consoles between Sega, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, why don't we try to think if we can update them a little bit and do them in a tier list style, but do them all at once and compare them amongst each other on one list. So that's what we're going to do today. So this particular tier list style ranking of the consoles is going to focus primarily only on Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. I decided not to add Sega for this particular list just because even growing up I was more of a Nintendo person. My brother was more of a Sega person. So that is what we are going to do for this particular list. So if you do happen to enjoy this little ranking of mine and you have your own personal opinions by the end, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to track me on my future videos. And remember, if you guys have any ideas for future rankings, reviews, or just discussions, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will try to get them up as soon as I can. So as we peer over to my particular style of ranking for this particular video, I think that this is a pretty solid collection, and I have them ranked in 6 different categories. So we're going from I love this console, I enjoyed this console, I think it was okay, I wasn't impressed, didn't like, or I just flat out did not play. So let's just start off with the ones that I have not played, just to get those out of the way. I don't even know what this generation's Xbox is. So I think it's like Xbox X XS or something. I don't even know what it's called. That's how irrelevant the current Xbox is. I mean, again, I've been mainly a Sony person with keeping my origins in Nintendo, so I've never really been a big Microsoft fan myself. So yeah, and I haven't seen a single game for this current Xbox, whatever it's called, that has really even piqued my interest in giving it a try. And I think those are the only ones that I haven't actually played, and I think that's about it. So let's work our way up and go with the consoles I didn't like. What didn't I like? Oh, I'm missing one. Okay. Yeah, I don't even know what that is. I think that's something. But is there anything in here I don't really like? Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I didn't really like. I think this is just the Xbox One and every single variation of the Xbox One, which is funny because the Xbox One is officially the only Xbox I've ever actually owned myself. I was just curious. I'd never owned an Xbox, so I decided to give it a try, and over the course of 6 months, I turned it on less than like 5 times. It just didn't really appeal to me. And the games I was playing on it were older games, so I was just kind of seeing if they were worth playing. And, pretty much my overall biased thoughts against Xbox had been proven true. So nothing had really changed in all that time between the time I played Xbox 360 and Xbox One. So I didn't really like it. And heck, I just traded my Xbox One away just to get a backup PlayStation 4. So as I look at this list, I think that's the only console on here that I can just openly say flat out I just did not like. Now, onto the consoles that I was not impressed with. Easily, I was not impressed with the GameCube. I like its games. There were definitely a number of games on the GameCube that I wish I could have played, but the console itself, I think it was just design-wise, aesthetically, it looked like, in my opinion, a step back from the Nintendo 64, which is still one of my favorite Nintendo systems of all time. That is also going to be followed up by... Is there anything else on here I don't like or wasn't impressed with? Yeah, I was not impressed with the Wii. The gimmick of motion control was very, very popular. I mean, trust me, the Wii killed it during its generation. But motion control, I always felt was a little bit more better on the move, which I still use to this day. I mean, I don't really like the nunchucks. And really, for the Nintendo Wii, I've told this story many times. I literally only bought the Nintendo Wii to play one game, only for me to discover later on that they were re-releasing that game in HD on the PlayStation 3. So I just gave the Wii away, and I never thought about it again since then. So I would say just those two Nintendo consoles are the only ones that I was just not impressed with. Now going into the consoles, I think by today's standards are okay. This is gonna shock some people, but I would actually put the very first PlayStation. Now don't get me wrong, first PlayStation, it is iconic, it is classic, it's the one that stirred it all. But just comparing it to now's standards, it's just there's really nothing all that special about it. I mean, it certainly has still an impressive. When you look at the exclusive lineup of games that were introduced in the franchises that were started on the first PlayStation, I would say there's definitely been a number of generations after that I think overall had much better quality, and I just think overall it's just too basic. But again, being basic is not bad. But heck, there's just nothing all that special about it nowadays, just compared to the prior generations of PlayStations that have come after it. But heck, no negative feelings towards it. Like I just think it's just okay. Another thing I think is also okay. Let me see if there's anything else. Sorry, that is my phone. I'm going to actually go with the original NES. This one, too, is more of just the same, but just for Nintendo. Trust me, great console. This was a little bit before my time. I do believe this came out in the late 80s. I think somewhere around 88, 87, I believe. Maybe 80, maybe 89. But just compared to today's standards, just really not too many games on there that I think are just worth going back and playing. And just, it's, again, like the original PlayStation, it's just very, very basic. So I would just put those two and just pair them together as just being okay. Now we get on to things getting really, really fun. Now things get really positive. So I'm going to surprise you, but I actually did enjoy my limited time playing the Xbox 360. And I'm just going to pair all variations of it. I did play this a few times in college, and I do recall actually having some fun when playing with my roommates. I think this was kind of the start of Microsoft kind of expanding their library of games and increasing their quality. I still don't think in terms of quality games they were anywhere near as great as like PlayStation 3 games were still. But I could tell that they were definitely trying, and I think the hardware, despite having several problems, I think it was pretty good. So yeah, I would say that not much, but my limited time playing an Xbox 360, even though I didn't have to pay for it, was, I'd be lying if I didn't say I had a few months where I was having some fun. So that's a positive. And that'll also be topped with the very first Xbox. Now, while I think the Xbox 360 is a better overall console, I certainly had a lot more fun playing the first Xbox. That one I did play a lot of on multiple different occasions, whether it was a relative bringing it over or playing it at school or playing it at his friend's house. I do recall I did play the very first Xbox a lot. I didn't play it as much as my PlayStation 2, and it wasn't as fun to play as PlayStation 2, but anytime the opportunity to play it was presented to me, I would go ahead and play it. So yeah, I definitely have a lot of very positive and fond memories of playing the very first Xbox. So it kind of earned its spot of being a genuine console that deserved to continue going, which it's still going to this day. On to the next one that I really enjoyed. I would have to go with the Super NES. This is where I started. This is for me when gaming first started. Now, my first gaming console or handheld in general was the very big fat Game Boy, as most people that I know their mates started off with. But my very first console was without question the Super Nintendo, and that was the system that I was drawn to the most back in those days. Great collection. I would say even to this day, it probably has, without doubt, my favorite library of games. There's so many classic Super Nintendo games that I would easily go buy. In fact, even on my Switch, I think there's a little app on my Switch that allows me to play some classic Super NES games, and I've been using that nonstop whenever I don't play some of the newer games that get released. But in fact, the next game I'm going to pick up is a Super Mario RPG, and that is a game that came out during this period of time. So I just love to have another opportunity to go back and revisit these games that I enjoyed as a kid and just playing updated versions of them. So yeah, I absolutely love the Super Nintendo. This is going to be followed up by, I think I'm going to pair it, probably I'm gonna put the N64. While I did start with the Super NES, the N64 officially was the first gaming console I ever actually owned myself. The Super NES was more when I went to other people's place or when family members came and they brought their own Super NES, and because we all grew up together, I got to play it a lot. But the Nintendo 64 was the very, very first game console I actually owned myself. And it has so many classic games. I would say library-wise, it's not quite as great as the Super NES, but I do think it was the first console up to that point, before PlayStation, that really got the transition between going from 2D to 3D perfectly. And a lot of those games to this day still hold up incredibly well. And I think a lot of people are still going back and playing them, especially channels that do more retro plays. And they're very classic. Some of the greatest games of all time, from a lot of people's standards, came on this console. So that's why it's probably without question one of the best consoles of all time. Easily a top 10 for me, at least. This is also going to be followed up by the Nintendo Switch. Now, I'm actually going to add both versions, despite the fact I've never actually played the smaller version. I have to admit, the Switch is probably the biggest surprise, as I'm probably one of the biggest hypocrites against the Switch in general, because before getting my Switch, I didn't have very high opinions. I didn't understand it. It's like, how the heck can you be a handheld and a console? We've never had something like that. You're either a portable device or you play something at home. You've never really been able to play it on the go. And to be honest, this is like the first true hybrid that has actually done a very good job. In fact, I think this is sold like incredibly well. I think right now it's like, last time I checked, it's like the third highest selling gaming console device of all time, behind only, I believe, the DS and the PlayStation 2. So that is very impressive. And while I don't play it as much as the other consoles, it has given me the opportunity to go back and play older consoles, older console games, I should say. So it has a great job of allowing me to play newer games as well as going back and playing older games. And it could only be done on the Nintendo Switch, which is why, heck, I would absolutely recommend anyone who doesn't have a Switch definitely get one by now. This is also going to be followed up by the PlayStation 5. Both versions of the PlayStation 5. It hasn't been out for too long. I have had a good amount of time playing it. I don't play it definitively for all my games. I do find myself going back and turning on my PlayStation 4 Pro and playing some games on there just to save time. I think it's only slightly better than the PlayStation 4, though, to be fair. But the only thing, just overall, I would say that the PlayStation 5 has over the PlayStation 4 is not so much in the hardware, but really the controller. I think the haptic feedback is definitely one of the most revolutionary additions to a game controller that I've experienced. But not a lot of games actually use them. When games use haptic feedback, you get a truly interesting experience. But again, I don't think I've played enough games at this point that really took advantage of those functions. I think the best game that I've played that actually used haptic feedback extremely well was probably Returnal. I would say to this day, I don't think I've played a game after that actually used haptic feedback as well as that game. And that game is almost like 2 years old by now. So I really hope that they really push that technology more in games coming out, I'd say, in the next 2 to 3 years, because it really adds to the experience. So that's where I would put PlayStation 5. And because of that, I would now put the PlayStation 4, both variations of it. Oh, I missed an Xbox. I think that's Xbox One, so I'll put that there. And I think, yeah, all the versions of PlayStation 4 I would go and enjoy. And I would say, yeah, PlayStation 4 is great. Just so many. I don't have enough time to talk about just how much fun I've had playing the PlayStation 4. Just so many fun memories. Such an incredible library of games. The function of being able to save just gameplay footage as you play, streaming directly from the console. This is revolutionary. It has helped my channel grow so much better. It's made things so much easier and much more enjoyable in terms of gaming. I would probably say out of all the consoles that I've played up to this point, online gaming really got fun for me during that period of time, which is why still enjoy playing my PlayStation 4 Pro even to this day, and I don't think that'll stop for a while, which is why that's why I think the PlayStation 4 for me is going to top the enjoyed list. And that leaves only 2 consoles left. I got to lower that down a little bit. And I am going to go with the PlayStation 2 as a console I absolutely loved. The PlayStation 2 was the very first PlayStation console I ever actually owned. I got to play my brother's PlayStation 1 a lot, but the very first one that I actually got myself was PlayStation 2. And this, I would say, out of any PlayStation console to this day, I think PlayStation 2 has, without doubt, the strongest library of exclusive games. There are so many high-quality franchises that we still play to this day that were started during this generation. You had Ratchet & Clank, God of War. This is where my experience of Resident Evil was started. You also have games like Devil May Cry. You also have games like, oh man, just so many. Like Onimusha, that started on this generation. This is where Mortal Kombat for me really started getting good. Just Killzone was started on this franchise. I mean, just a number of great franchises were started on this generation, and some of them are still going. And yeah, I love it. So that's why PlayStation 2. But without question, my favorite console, PlayStation console that I've ever played in general, has to go to the PlayStation 3. I understand a lot of people didn't really enjoy the PlayStation 3 as much as I did, but I still do. I just think it kind of has the best of both worlds. It had a set of quality games. Online playing was great. It introduced the trophy system, which encouraged me to play games even more than I ever would have, because before I would play a game and then perhaps I might come back. So having a trophy system and needing to do a number of things allowed me to explore games in a way that I had never done before, up to this point before, with any other games beforehand. This is where I started doing online gaming. True, it was a little bit better on PlayStation 4, but heck, I had a number of quality experiences online on the PlayStation 3 era. Luckily for me, I never had any technical issues, which is a good thing. And just so many great games that are in my top 10s of favorite games of all time that came from almost this period and PlayStation 2. So that's why I just think it's really the technology that kind of allows it to edge the PlayStation 2 out just a little bit. So I would say the software is certainly better on the PlayStation 2, but the hardware is a little bit better on the PlayStation 3. And it's that little edge that allows it to kind of edge out the PlayStation 2, at least in my eyes, which is why for me, I would put PlayStation 3 at the top of my list. So that is my ranking of all of the primary Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox console games that I have either played or not played. Now, if you feel like going, how would you rank these consoles? Share your list with me and everyone else in the comments down below. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.